Billy Porter is an Emmy and Tony Award-winning actor, and he was recently featured on Who Do You Think You Are on NBC. In this video, I'm going to go a little more in-depth on part of the research and show you how you can apply those same techniques to your family history. Billy Porter went into his episode knowing that there was someone in his family tree who had been shot and killed. He had grown up thinking that it was his grandfather, when in reality it was actually his great-grandfather, Thomas Richardson. Genealogist Nika Smith researched in the Pittsburgh newspapers trying to find information about what happened to Thomas Richardson. Nika showed two different newspaper articles from two different Pittsburgh newspapers. And these two newspaper articles had vastly different accounts of what happened to Thomas Richardson. Let's take a look. In the May 27, 1923 issue of the Pittsburgh Press, it was reported that, according to police, Richardson, with two Negro companions and a white man, were quarreling in Butler Street near 38th. When the patrolman arrived at the scene of the quarrel, it is said that Richardson drew a revolver. The patrolman saw him reach for the gun, police say, and drew the quicker. Patrolman Fullerton fired first, and Richardson dropped to the ground with a bullet in his breast. So, according to this article in the Pittsburgh Press, the two men were facing each other when the shooting occurred. But that's not how it happened, according to the Pittsburgh Courier. According to the Pittsburgh Courier of June 2nd, there was a scuffle between Richardson and Officer Fullerton. Fullerton directed him, Richardson, to the box, telling him he was under arrest. Richardson started for the box, and the cop walked behind, shot Richardson in the back, dropping him like a steer in a slaughterhouse. As genealogist Nika Smith pointed out in the episode, the Pittsburgh Press was owned by whites. The Pittsburgh Courier was a black newspaper. Watching this episode, I was curious if there were any other newspaper articles about this shooting. I was able to find several more. And I'm confident that Nika Smith also had found these articles, but because of time constraints for the episode, she wasn't able to present them on TV. What's interesting about looking at all of these different newspaper articles is how the accounts vary. We've already seen two different accounts between the Pittsburgh Press and the Pittsburgh Courier. Let's see what some other Pittsburgh newspapers have to say. The Pittsburgh Gazette-Times of May 27, 1923, states, as the officer started to escort Richardson across the street to a patrol box, Richardson is alleged to have broken away. When he failed to halt, Patrolman Fullerton drew his revolver and fired one shot, and Richardson fell to the ground with a bullet wound in his back. So there's another account of Officer Fullerton shooting Thomas Richardson in the back. This time, they're saying that he was doing it as Richardson was running away. Let's fast forward a few days to when there was a coroner's jury investigating this shooting. According to the Pittsburgh Daily Post of June 9th, Fullerton started toward the police box with his prisoner when Richardson stopped to speak to a friend in the crowd. The policeman, with his own revolver in one hand and the Negro's weapon in the other, ordered Richardson to move on, and after the Negro had taken a few steps forward, Fullerton fired into the Negro's back, witnesses testified. In this account of witness testimony to the coroner's jury, Richardson wasn't fleeing. Think of the different ways that this story has been reported across time and in these different newspapers. However, all of these different newspaper accounts gives us something to think about when we're exploring our own family history. First, when we're doing newspaper research, we want to be looking at all of the newspapers in the area. Think of all the newspapers we've used just in this example. We've looked at the Pittsburgh Press, the Pittsburgh Courier, the Pittsburgh Gazette-Times, and the Pittsburgh Daily Post. When you're thinking about newspapers for your own family research, don't stop at just that first newspaper that you found an article in. Back in the day, even small towns often had more than one newspaper. Also, think about ethnic and religious newspapers. As we saw here, the Pittsburgh Courier was actually a black newspaper. There were all kinds of ethnic newspapers in the United States. German newspapers, Italian newspapers, Croatian newspapers. Really, the possibilities are endless. Also think about religious newspapers. I've seen some wonderful newspapers published by Catholic dioceses and the Lutheran Church. It's also important to remember that it isn't just these big news events that had different accounts within different newspapers. I've seen obituaries be very scant in one newspaper, but very robust in another. Another thing to keep in mind with newspaper research is that you want to look for articles across time, not just that one day. Thinking again about obituaries, it's not uncommon for the first obituary to be relatively scant. But then the obituaries that are published on subsequent days, they have more information. Perhaps more survivors are listed, or it might give information about where the funeral is being held, or what cemetery the person is going to be buried in. There is so much that you can explore in your family history. I've put together a playlist with some of my favorite tips for helping you make more discoveries, so go check out that playlist. And I hope that you make some great discoveries in your family tree.